Have you ever looked around and thought, is this really all there is to my life? Even when everything looks fine on the outside, friends, work, goals, something inside feels hollow, like you're just going through the motions. No matter how full your schedule is, no matter how many tasks you check off each day, deep down there's a lingering feeling like something essential is missing. It's as if you're surviving, not living. You may have called it anxiety, or maybe a doctor gave it a name, depression. And with that label came a solution. Medication to dull the discomfort, a pill to start the day, another to end it. And while the pain fades, so does something else, your connection to what that pain is really trying to say. But what if this suffering isn't a malfunction? What if it's a message? Carl Jung, one of the most profound minds in psychology, believed that what we often see as mental illness isn't a defect, but a signal. He saw it as the psyche's desperate attempt to heal itself, a warning cry that your current way of living is betraying your soul. Maybe you're trapped in a life that was chosen for you, a job that exhausts you, relationships that drain you, dreams that aren't even yours. And beneath it all, your true self is crying out for freedom. But no one ever taught you how to hear that cry. In fact, they taught you to silence it, to keep going, to fit in, to never cause trouble. So you function, you adapt, and silently you fall apart while the world praises your efficiency. This is where Jung's philosophy becomes revolutionary. Healing doesn't come from denial. It comes from going deeper. It's not about hiding the symptoms. It's about understanding the story behind them. As Jung said, neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering. You suffer not because you are broken, but because you're avoiding the very pain that could change your life. The longer you run, the worse it gets. This video isn't for those looking to escape. It's for those brave enough to confront, for those who feel lost but refuse to give up the last spark of hope. There is a way forward, but it begins with a hard truth. You must stop running and start listening. Listening to yourself, listening to your unconscious, listening to the pain you've been drowning out with distractions, medications, and endless routines. If you're still watching, then maybe you've already sensed it. That emptiness you feel isn't weakness. It's the absence of your own presence in your life. And it's time to reclaim it. Maybe you've been feeling heavy for days, weeks, months. You visit a doctor. You talk about your anxiety, your insomnia, the weight in your chest that comes from nowhere. He nods. He types. 15 minutes go by. If that. Then comes the verdict. It's anxiety. A prescription is written, and suddenly, your deep existential pain becomes nothing more than a chemical imbalance. Your inner scream is reduced to a bottle of pills. But what they won't tell you is this. This system isn't built to heal your soul. They don't care about your soul. They care about your functionality. Because as long as you can work, consume, produce, and keep the machine running, then by society's standards, you're fine. Medication becomes a tool not for healing, but for endurance. It lets you bear the unbearable. That's why it's offered as a final fix. But as Carl Jung warned, this so-called solution is a dangerous illusion. Jung believed that modern neuroses don't stem from broken brains. They arise from the gap between the life we are living and the life we are meant to live. When we abandon our inner calling, ignore our instincts, and suppress our truths, the soul begins to break down. And because the soul has no words, it speaks through the body. It cries out through anxiety, panic, despair. But instead of listening, we're taught to suppress, to medicate discomfort, numb the symptoms, and return to normal as quickly as possible. But what is that normal, really? A job that drains you but pays the bills. Superficial relationships built on appearances. Routines that feel mechanical. Goals that feel meaningless. And the constant echo of a life that feels borrowed, not lived. That anxiety you feel, it's not weakness. It's your soul begging you, this isn't the life I chose. And if you ignore it long enough, the body begins to scream louder. But the system is always ready, with another pill, another diagnosis, another numbing agent. The more you adapt to this model, the more you drift away from your essence, until you feel nothing at all. No joy, no pain, just that hollow, chronic numbness the world calls adulthood. Jung warned us, when we medicate the symptom without understanding the root, we build a mask of healing. You might appear fine on the outside, but inside, you're still lost. And over time, that split between what you live and what you truly feel becomes unbearable, because you can't run from your soul forever. It will collect its debt, sometimes in the form of burnout, sometimes in emotional collapse, sometimes in a silence so deep, nothing seems to fill it. This mass medicalization reflects a culture terrified of pain, a world that no longer knows how to suffer because it's forgotten the purpose behind it. To Jung, suffering wasn't a malfunction, it was the beginning, the call to awaken, the start of the journey to individuation, the path to becoming whole. But today, suffering is labeled a disorder, and in trying to escape it, we lose the very chance to become who we truly are. So the question is, how many lives are being numbed into submission? How many souls are silenced before their journey even begins? How many people mistake sedation for peace? If we want answers, we must look deeper into our culture, our environment, our lifestyle, because maybe the real illness was never within you, but in the world that convinced you to reject yourself. Let's explore that in the next part. Before we move on, thank you for 100,000 subscribers. If you haven't joined us yet, hit that subscribe button and follow our journey. And here's one more question to carry with you. Why are so many people emotionally collapsing in a world full of freedom, comfort, and constant stimulation? We've never had more entertainment, more distractions, more access to information, and yet so many are silently falling apart. And despite all our progress, the abundance of information, entertainment, and material comfort, we've never been so disconnected from ourselves. The root of today's psychological suffering isn't just buried in the mind. It lies in the world that has shaped us since birth. Carl Jung saw this with piercing clarity. To him, the problem wasn't just personal, it was cultural, structural. We live in a world obsessed with appearances, yet indifferent to essence. A world that praises efficiency but ignores the soul behind the machine. From the moment we begin to walk and speak, we're handed a script. Study hard, pick a stable career, be productive, buy things, smile for the camera, and whatever you do, never look weak. We are conditioned to perform, to please, to compete, to win. But no one teaches us to turn inward, to ask, what gives my life meaning? What do I feel? What is my truth? This emptiness we carry is not accidental. It is systematic. We are taught to believe that our worth comes from outside, from our job title, our paycheck, our popularity, our image. But Jung saw the danger in this illusion. When your value depends on how the world sees you, you are always at its mercy. And worse, you grow distant from yourself, from your instincts, from your soul. And in that gap, emptiness begins to bloom, quietly, relentlessly. You check all the boxes, you follow the plan, and still, you feel off. Like you're playing a role in someone else's story, like something essential is missing, but you can't name it. That feeling isn't failure, it's disconnection. Disconnection from the raw, intuitive, wild parts of you. And Jung believed this fracture, this distance from the self, is what gives rise to our deepest psychological wounds. But the system prefers you this way. Disconnected people are easier to guide. They consume more, obey more, complain less. They are predictable, manageable, useful. And when those people collapse under the weight of anxiety, depression, or burnout, the system responds with bandages, never truth. Jung argued that real healing requires confrontation. You must face the world that wounded you. You must uncover the beliefs that were forced on you, the parts of yourself that were buried, the sacrifices you made just to feel accepted. And this work hurts. It requires admitting that the life you built might not be truly yours, that you bend yourself into a shape that felt safe but suffocated your essence, that you were tamed by a culture afraid of the untamed human soul. But this is also the only way through, because only when you understand where the emptiness began can you begin to fill it with something real, and this journey of returning to the self. Jung called it individuation. It's not just healing, it's transformation, the deep inner process of becoming whole. In the next part, we will go deeper into what it means to individuate. How can you reclaim the forgotten parts of yourself and build a life that finally feels like yours? The answers demand courage, but also surrender. Because eventually there comes a moment when the pain can no longer be ignored, when the mask you wear becomes too heavy, when you realize you're living only a fraction of who you truly are, or worse, a hollow imitation. And it is at this breaking point Jung believed that the most important journey of all begins. Now begins the journey Jung called individuation. But what does it really mean to individuate? This isn't about trendy habits, productivity hacks, or feel-good self-help. Jung wasn't interested in surface-level transformation. He was speaking of a deep, almost mythical process, one in which the individual sheds the borrowed masks of family, society, and expectation, and finally begins to become what they truly are. At its core, individuation is the path to inner wholeness. It is the shift from being who the world wants you to be to becoming who your soul has always been calling you to be. But this path isn't straight, and it certainly isn't comfortable. It demands confrontation with every part of yourself that has been buried, repressed, silenced, your past traumas, your denied longings, your unquestioned beliefs, inherited without reflection. Jung called this vast hidden terrain the personal unconscious, and it begins to emerge the moment you stop running and choose to face what lives within you. But this is only the beginning. The most difficult and most transformative step in individuation is the confrontation with the shadow, that dark, primal, emotional, sometimes chaotic part of you that you were taught to hide. The rage you suppress, the jealousy you pretend doesn't exist, the thoughts that scare you, the instincts that embarrass you. Jung once wrote, "Those who look outside dream. Those who look inside awaken." And awakening means standing face to face with your shadow, without masks, without judgment, without denial, Why is this so vital? Because what you ignore in yourself will control you, unconsciously, quietly, powerfully. But when you stop rejecting these parts and begin integrating them, you unlock something incredible: authenticity, vitality, real power. True living only begins when you stop waging war against yourself and instead make peace with all that you are. That is individuation, a return to inner unity, a reconnection with the self, the central balancing force of your psyche, the complete and living whole you were always meant to be. And here lies the paradox. The world will tell you to improve yourself. Jung tells you, become yourself, not perfect, but whole, not obedient, but free. The healing you truly need is not about fitting better into a broken system. It's about aligning your inner world with the truth that already lives within you. Yes, this process can feel isolating. Yes, it can be painful. But it's also the only path that gives real meaning to your life. Because once you start living from your center, everything shifts. Your decisions change. Your relationships transform. Even your pain becomes different. Suffering stops being punishment and becomes the catalyst for your personal evolution. But this leads to an inevitable question. Why do so many avoid this journey? Why do so many stay numb, repeating the same routines, hiding from their own souls? The answer lies at the heart of modern suffering, the loss of meaning, a quiet epidemic that corrodes even those who appear fine. And that's what we'll explore in the next part. Because maybe your pain isn't a flaw. Maybe it's a signal that the life you've been living has lacked purpose. But that can change, and it must. Pause for a moment. Look around you. How many people do you know who are merely existing, living on autopilot, trapped in routines filled with hollow tasks, shallow distractions, and a weariness that no amount of sleep can cure? Carl Jung understood. This kind of suffering is not accidental. It is built in. It is structural. It is existential. Carl Jung believed that much of modern psychological suffering stems from one harsh, inescapable truth. Life, for many, has lost its meaning. And when we speak of meaning, we're not talking about some grand cosmic destiny, nor about utopian fantasies sold in spiritual packaging. We're talking about something deeply personal, the alignment between what you do and who you truly are, the quiet power of living from your own truth, instead of chasing the illusions that the modern world sells as success. A world that glorifies achievement, yet quietly starves the soul. Jung noticed something striking in his patients. The most agonizing symptoms, anxiety, apathy, depression, often faded not with more pills or more money, but with the discovery of purpose. When someone finds their why, they can endure almost any how. But when that meaning is lost, even pleasure becomes dull, even joy turns into routine. This is the reality we're living now. Not just a burnout epidemic, but a meaning crisis. People aren't just exhausted from doing too much. They're exhausted from doing what doesn't matter. Lives packed with obligations, yet empty of direction. Jung understood a truth we've forgotten. Human beings need to feel part of something greater than themselves. They need to feel that their existence leaves a mark, that their life carries weight. Without this anchor, the inner structure collapses. Suffering becomes confusion. Pain becomes numbness. The soul cries out for a path. But the world answers with noise, likes, streaming platforms, productivity hacks, empty promises in shiny packages. But none of these can replace real meaning. because what's missing isn't stimulation, it's truth. The truth is, many are living lives they never chose, pushed down paths designed to please others, but which quietly betray their own essence. They accept jobs that mean nothing to them, stay in relationships that hollow them out, live in environments that suffocate their spirit, follow routines that erase who they are, one day at a time. And the body knows. The mind begins to falter, the soul shrinks inward. There is no pill for a life without meaning, because what's missing isn't serotonin, it's direction. It's not dopamine, it's identity. And this is where Jung's message becomes more urgent than ever. He didn't want people to simply function. He wanted them to truly live, to have the courage to say, "This is not my life, and I will not keep living it." But how do you start over when everything around you seems designed to pull you away from yourself? Jung believed the answer lies in the unconscious, because buried deep within you, in the parts you've ignored or forgotten, is the key to your purpose. And in the next part, we'll explore how reconnecting with your unconscious can become your greatest ally. Because maybe, just maybe, what you've spent your life avoiding is exactly what you need to face in order to finally live with meaning. If this resonates with you, you'll find real depth in my ebook, Beyond the Shadow. It breaks down Jung's essential teachings and offers tools to help you understand yourself on a much deeper level. You'll find the link pinned in the comments. Most people say they want to heal, but few are truly willing to pay the price. Because contrary to pop culture advice, real transformation doesn't begin with affirmations or habits. It begins with confrontation, with truth, and with the courage to go inward, where your purpose has always been waiting. It always begins the same way, with a confrontation, a descent, a journey into the depths of your own soul. And this, precisely, is what Carl Jung dedicated his life to teaching. There is no true healing without contact with the unconscious. But what exactly is the unconscious? For Jung, it was far more than a vault of suppressed traumas or forgotten memories. It was an entire inner cosmos, a vast symbolic realm containing everything you've pushed away, abandoned, rejected, your wildest instincts, your most hidden fears, your rawest truths. All of it waits for you there. Why does this matter? Because what you refuse to face in the unconscious doesn't disappear. It takes control, silently, invisibly. Jung warned, what you do not bring to consciousness returns as fate. You think you're cursed in love, but you're repeating the same unconscious pattern. You think the world is against you, but you're trapped in old wounds you've never dared to name. You think you fear failure, but deep down, it's success you're terrified of. The unconscious is like a dark mirror. It doesn't flatter, it doesn't lie. It reflects who you truly are, not who you pretend to be. And that's what makes it terrifying. It rips away the mask. It exposes the lies you've built to survive. It shatters the illusion of control, forcing you to face your inner complexity. But here lies the paradox. What feels like destruction is actually the beginning of healing. The more you deny the unconscious, the more it controls you. You become reactive, impulsive, fragmented. But the more you integrate it, the more whole you become. Jung called this process the expansion of consciousness, and it begins the moment you stop running and start listening. How do you listen to the unconscious? Through dreams, through symbols, through silence, through art, reflection, meditation, or therapy. The unconscious doesn't speak in logic. It speaks in images, in sensations, in sudden waves of emotion. It may feel like nothing, but it's not. It's you. It's the part of you that's been waiting patiently, painfully, to be acknowledged. And once you begin to listen, something shifts. You start to see yourself more clearly. You recognize your patterns. You hold your wounds with compassion. And in doing so, you begin to reclaim your power. Because until you know what lives inside you, you're not free. You're a hostage of your past, a hostage of social programming, a hostage of fear. But when you choose to dive into the unconscious, when you face what's hidden, you begin to liberate yourself. You realize the anxiety that once crushed you isn't an enemy. It's a message. The sadness you've avoided isn't weakness. It's a signal that something within must die so something new can live. This journey is not easy. It demands time, stillness, depth. It requires leaving behind the surface world with all its distractions, numbing, and false comforts. But it's the only path to something real, to authenticity. And from that place, you rebuild your life. Not as a puppet of your unconscious, but as a conscious creator of your destiny. Now that you understand how vital the unconscious is, not just to your suffering, but to your transformation, one last question remains. What is stopping you from beginning? Why do so many, even after realizing all this, stay stuck? Why do they keep living the same empty life on autopilot, pretending not to hear the call? The answer is simple: fear. Fear of change, fear of loss, fear of stepping into the unknown, even when the known is what's killing them. And in the final part, we'll explore that fear and the most difficult but most liberating decision you'll ever need to make. To stop wasting your life and finally choose to live it. In the end, you have only two choices: to remain anesthetized or to awaken. There is no middle path. There comes a moment in every life when a decision must be made. Not just any decision, the decision. The one that separates who you truly are from who the world trained you to be. The one that decides whether you'll keep living someone else's version of life, numb, borrowed, and hollow, or whether you will finally commit to the only promise that truly matters, the promise to your own soul. If you've made it this far, it's not by accident. Something inside you has stirred. Maybe it's still just a whisper. Maybe it's already a scream. But it's there, and it's not going away. Because this voice doesn't come from your mind. It comes from the deepest, most unfiltered part of your being, the part that refuses to believe that life is just about work, deadlines, distractions, and survival. It knows, without needing proof, that there is something more, something waiting for you. But it will only appear if you have the courage to walk toward yourself. Carl Jung said, "The greatest privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And yet it is the most avoided journey, because it asks you to give up comfort, to leave behind the predictable, to let go of everything that is safe but shallow. It asks you to confront your deepest fears, to meet your shadows, to question every belief you were raised to accept. But that's why this path is sacred, because it doesn't just change you. It awakens you. It heals you. Most people won't take it. They'll choose sleep over clarity. They'll keep hoarding distractions, collecting likes, checking boxes, while quietly decaying on the inside. But you don't have to be one of them. You can choose differently. Choose to stop wasting your existence. Choose to walk out of the fog. Choose to build a life that reflects your soul, a life that feels like home. No, it won't be easy. It will hurt. It will break things. It will ask you to let go of people, patterns, illusions. But it will set you free. And there is nothing more powerful than a soul that has awakened. Because when you start living in alignment with your truth, you become unshakable. You stop begging for validation. You stop chasing approval. You stop shrinking to fit into boxes that were never meant to hold you. So now I ask you, what do you need to let go of to begin truly living? What is the lie you're still telling yourself? Comment below. It doesn't have to be long. Even a single word can become a key. The simple act of naming your truth is already a step out of numbness. It is a signal to your unconscious. I'm here now. I choose to wake up. And if this video stirred something in you, if it touched a wound or lit a spark, then don't stop here. Watch the next video. Not because it's a sequel, but because you are ready to go further. And now, more than ever, it's time to continue.